Naruto, 10 Strongest Shinobi from the Sand Village, ranked. The Sand Village has produced many fine ninja I wish to challenge other nations and defend themselves. Here are 10 of the strongest Sand Shinobi. Sunigakure, otherwise known as the Sand Village, debuted as antagonists to the Naruto universe at the beginning of the original series. However, after Orochimaru's plans failed, they became the Leaf's most ardent and reliable allies for the remainder of the story and even into its subsequent act, Boruto. With an illustrious history of combat especially against Konoha itself. The Sand Village has produced many fine ninja to challenge other nations and defend themselves. By identifying the strongest warriors to have originated from its borders, fans can see who the Sand's strongest shinobi are in the Naruto franchise. 10. Maki, she is a great supportive jutsu user who is a great asset to the Sand. Maki was a loyal kunoichi of the Sand, an admirer of Gaara, and a determined student to Pakura. Her ceiling-based jutsu was instrumental to the allied shinobi forces against the rivaling Edo Tensei army since she was among its most proficient users. Her cloth could increase the mobility of her allies or create a clean escape under dire circumstances. However, considering her low offensive potential, she is primarily useful as a support ninja to the efforts of stronger and more capable comrades. Nonetheless, her specialization renders her unique and a worthy asset to her village. 9. Baki, his jutsu made him a difficult target during his alliance with Orochimaru. Baki was the instructor of Gaara and a co-conspirator in Orochimaru's plan to overthrow the Leaf. His wind blade was handy when fighting opponents in melee combat since it simulated the hardiness of steel, though it could remain incorporeal when passing through his opponent's weapon. This made him virtually impossible to conventionally parry or block. However, he has a low-ranged affinity and a limited arsenal of jutsu. Should one enter combat knowing about his power in advance, it would be trivial to strategize and overcome many other techniques such as shadow clones. 8. Lady Chiyo, she was a strong shinobi, but her age limited her fighting capabilities. Lady Chiyo was a skilled puppeteer and personally responsible for introducing Sasori to the craft. Her reflexes and experience from the Second Shinobi War were phenomenal, allowing her to manipulate Sakura's limbs and overcome her grandson's army of deadly dolls. Unfortunately, her age limits her capacity as a combatant. Furthermore, her puppets pale compared to Sasori and Kankuro, as she commands fewer of them and fewer weapons. Their absence of poisons is particularly debilitating since it is usually a puppeteer's tool of choice when confronting more mobile shinobi opponents as demonstrated through Kankuro's battle against Shino. 7. Pakura, she was the master of the Scorch release, but she was killed early on in the series. Pakura was a master of the Scorch release and the mentor of Maki, a seasoned kunoichi warrior. She alone was responsible for staving off and slaughtering dozens of allied shinobi warriors, including a hardened Stone Village veteran. Her ability is challenging to deal with since it accommodates her already formidable taijutsu prowess. She can concentrate heat into orbs or decisive beams that can rip through an opponent's body like butter. Additionally, she possessed such astounding willpower that she could resist the Edo Tensei and allow her former student to escape at the end of her reanimated life. 6. Kankuro, he's an expert puppeteer, but distance limits his capabilities. Kankuro was an experienced puppeteer and one of Gaara's most stalwart and reliable warriors partly due to their shared lineage. His 3 dolls perfectly complement offense and defensive utility, able to move them with dizzying speed to vex and confound his prey. The salamander is a primarily protective tool to defend against the most potent ranged abilities. Similarly, the black ant and crow are intended to poison and skewer his foes. When combined, they can encompass their prey in a coffin-like, puppet show, that is virtually impossible to survive. 5. Temari, she's the strongest wind users in the sand, giving her a big advantage. Temari was Gaara's sister and handily the strongest kunoichi of the sand. Her reinforced fan was capable of cleaving through an entire forest and knocking even the most staunch aggressors off their feet. Demonstrated through her battle alongside Shikamaru against Taiyuya. Moreover, it can be used for flight, making her an invaluable resource for scouting missions and a rugged survivor in the most treacherous situations. Should there be any considerable distance between herself and her target, she would arguably have the most success of any ninja in the Sand Village. 4. Raza, as the former Kazekage, he had immense capabilities and jutsu at his fingertips. Raza was the Kazekage before Gaara and proficient at using a jutsu, similar to his son's. The former leader's golden sand was malleable and deadly, possessing beauty along with power in equal measure. He participated with the other resurrected Kage against the combined efforts of the allied shinobi forces. However, his dust is not as strong as Gaara's sand and cannot defend him automatically as the latter's does. This was partially responsible for his decisive and humiliating defeat in battle against his own son. With his resealing providing the newly christened Kazekage with desperately needed closure. 3. Gaara, his ultimate defense and ruthless fighting style make him one of the strongest sand shinobi and Kage. Easily the most iconic member of the Sand Village, Gaara is a terrifying opponent to encounter. His legendary jutsu, the Sand Coffin, creates a grainy cocoon around his target that is virtually impossible to evade. Once they have been enveloped, he condenses the particles, thereby crushing the body inside. Even after he lost Shikaku at the Akatsuki hand, he demonstrated himself to be a formidable warrior throughout the Fourth Great Ninja War, especially with his victory against Raza. Though his fights may not always have succeeded, anyone who has defeated him has never emerged unscathed. 2. The third Kazekage, he influenced a generation of shinobi. The third Kazekage was frequently heralded as the Sand's strongest ninja for his unique take on the jutsu of Raza and Gaara. After intimately studying Shikaku, he was able to uncover the properties of magnetic dust and manipulate iron powder. As a result, he could create virtually impregnable shapes and were staggeringly more deadly than his successor Sans. Despite this amazing ability, it would not stop him from perishing in the battle against a former member of his own village. Orochimaru would later steal his DNA for a future Edo Tensei resurrection. 1. Sasori, he was one of the deadliest members of the Akatsuki. The murderer of the Kazekage, Sasori, earned his nickname of the Red Sand for the countless people he has slain. Though his accomplishments may be limited on account of his brief role in the story as the first Akatsuki to die, his potential was incredible. In addition to possessing an immortal body and over 100 dolls, he inflicted Kankuro with a personally created poison that had no modern antidotes. Moreover, he was willing to defeat Gaara, only staying his hand on account of Deidara's own enthusiasm to capture the Kazekage.